Nice. Hello and welcome back to Dukes on Switch. Back today with BANT Maverick, a deck that I haven't played too much of recently, but I think definitely has a place in the Maverick metagame. I think one of the biggest advantages of BANT Maverick is that it's an Oko deck that can power out Oko as early as turn 2, where a lot of the decks that currently play Oko kind of have to wait till turn 3 or later. There were some other decks like Infect that did have a time of playing Oko, but I haven't seen too much Infect recently, so it's kind of nice to be one of the only decks in Legacy right now that can play an Oko out pretty quickly. The real advantage of that is that even on the draw, you can actually get an Oko out before your opponent, which means you can hopefully get your food online, your creatures online a little bit quicker in disrupting your opponent's Oko plan. The other big advantage of playing a card like Oko in Maverick is that a lot of the hate for creatures doesn't always line up well with Oko. So you do get to attack from a different angle. You do get a bit of card advantage as well if your opponent's using removal on your food tokens or food creatures that are elked, which is really nice. So, of course, there's cards like Abrupt Decay and Bolt to an extent that can deal with Oko and also have that coverage of creatures as well, but things like Fatal Push, Dismember, Swords to Plowshares aren't going to be able to hit Oko, which is great. So I really like that. It's also pretty nice that we can move some creatures around with the neg 5. So something like a Thalia, Garden of Thraben, if it's in play, I'm probably not that unhappy if I get to switch it to my opponent's side and have my own creature. Because then you can do little things like Caracas Thalia to your hand, replay her. You can also take things away like a Icewind Quaddle perhaps that you want to try to attack through. So I think Oko is obviously pretty powerful. The other new card we're playing is Skyclave Apparition. This is a card that, unlike Death and Taxes, doesn't have too much use once it's in play. We don't play any flicker effects or any ways to get multiple ETB triggers off it. But I think as just a 1-for-1 trade, or I guess a 2-for-1 if you want to see it that way, it's really nice. It allows us to deal with a lot of problematic permanents that BANT colors traditionally can't really deal with. So things like opposing Okos, we don't have Abrupt Decays to get rid of them, we have to deal with them through combat damage. Skyclave, of course, gives us another route, which is really nice. Skyclave just also nice in this deck because we can cast it turn 2 if needed. Against Eldrazi, already a pretty favorable matchup. If we do play against something, an Eldrazi deck where they start with the Chalice, it's obviously really nice to deal with the Chalice, and then of course also not allow them to actually get anything out of it. The Chalice would be a 0 CMC permanent, so when it actually gets a creature token, it'll be a 0/0. Skyclave nice as well if you're playing Once Upon a Time, because it is removal you can find with Once. I'm not playing it because I just couldn't find room for it. I thought that instead of building on the consistency that the deck already has a really good base for, I just wanted to add in extra things like the Okos, an extra Sylvan Library. I always like playing the 2. And then just a more extensive Green Sun Zenith package with Uro, Hex Drinker, and then 2 more mana producing creatures. So I'm including Gilded Goose to have a 6th mana dork. This means on turn 1 we can have 7 ways, including Green Suns for Dryadabber, to build out our mana for a turn 2 3-drop, which is really nice. And I think pretty important in this deck because we are playing Oko. The one nice thing about Oko as well is that late game it can also turn these creatures into threats. So I'm not too unhappy with having, those mid to late game mana dorks off the top aren't as bad if you don't have an Oko. So I do like that Oko can really turn these into threats in the late game. And Gilded Goose, of course, is interesting because it's not coming up on this sidebar. There it is. Gilded Goose is interesting because in the mid to late game you can actually pump some mana into it, get some extra food, which may allow you to stay sort of in line with a Delver. It might allow you to get some food down so that when Oko comes down you can create a creature straight away. It's a pretty nice blocker against cards like an Unflipped Delver, against a Goblin Lackey. There's some pretty cool interactions there where the 0/2 body actually really helps. The only thing that I don't like about Gilded Goose is when you have a hand that you have a 3-drop and then you want to back up that next turn, your turn 3, with another really good or powerful play. Gilded Goose, of course, you need to then create a food to then untap it and then create a mana. So there hopefully won't be too many awkward situations where you really want the mana, but you have to wait to get the food. I know that Matt Soul played Gilded Goose in a green-white version that recently 5-0'd, and he was actually just really happy with Gilded Goose being a food creator. So didn't really have necessarily any issues with the mana producing part. Was just really happy that it was a mana dork in the early game, and then it created food when you wanted it in the mid to late game, which is cool. Hey Gizlo, good morning, I hope you're well. To the sideboard, I did change up the ley lines to Surgicals and Tormod's Crypts. I do like these just because they come in against a few different matchups. Surgical, of course, has that sort of combo side to it as well. If I really want to take something like a Swords to Plowshares or Terminus out of my opponent's ability to cast it, I can definitely bring in Surgical. If I'm really scared of Uro, I'm sure I could bring it in. But I like that, Tormod's Crypt is probably a card I'm happy to bring in against Maverick. But Leyline, probably not so much. It's not really a deck where Leyline is the be-all end-all. Prelate's really nice, especially in this deck. We have a few ways to get it down turn 2. Obviously great against decks like Doomsday. There's been a resurgence in those Karn Echo Storm decks, so don't mind it there. And kind of similar with Meddling Mage, taking the place of just a classic hate bear against decks like Doomsday, maybe Natural Order against Elves, and a few other things. Against a blue-white deck, you might name Swords to Plowshares. So Meddling Mage should be pretty fun. And then Deafening Silence, just a card that I feel kind of unsafe playing Maverick without, because we don't have great interaction on turns, I guess turn 1. Obviously, decks like Maverick and Death and Taxes have some really good turn 2s and turn 3 plays against combo because of hate bears like Thalia, Collector Oof, Meddling Mage, Prelate, Gaddock Teeg. So just making sure that we can live long enough to actually play those. It's only one turn, but usually that one turn matters. So making sure I can have turn 1 interaction to slow down my Tez opponent, my Doomsday opponent, my Karn Echo opponent. I think Deafening Silence is really nice. You could play a mix of Deafening Silence and Aethersworn Canonist, because there is a resurgence in some Elves lists. And of course, Deafening Silence does nothing against Elves, but Aethersworn Canonist does, which is nice. The biggest difference is that Deafening Silence is a turn 1 play. Aethersworn Canonist is a turn 2 play, which is great, but I think with Thalia, Green Suns for Collector Oof naturally, you already have a fair amount of 2-drops for combo. And even if you have that 1 or 2 Aethersworn Canonist in the sideboard, Elves is going to be a rough matchup. There's some matchups that you just have to kind of, take with a grain of salt. Know that it's, a 70-30 or 80-20 matchup and just maybe not bored for it. I just hope you dodge it or get lucky in the matchup. So that's kind of my reasoning on these combo pieces. And then for removal, Force of Vigor. I really like this card. Sometimes this deck can just get blown out by a turn 1 Blood Moon or an early Chalice, so having the Force is really nice. It's also great against the other Sylvan Library decks, sort of the mirror matches of Maverick and 4-color. And being able to, trade the Force, even with a Sylvan Library, or if you can hit a Sylvan and a Mox, you're usually very happy. The other one is Pithing Needle against some of the decks that don't like Wasteland, like Turbideps or Cloudpost. And then it's also pretty good. I probably don't bring it in against Astrolabe decks, but obviously against some of the equipment decks, it's pretty nice to have because you can tap out and still have interaction. I think that's the biggest benefit of Force of Vigor, is that your opponents don't usually see it coming from Maverick, where Maverick is traditionally a tap-out deck, play on the board, we're not really hiding anything. If you got it, you got it. So Force is nice there. Felidar Retreat, still a card that's been really underwhelming in Maverick. I've been finding that I haven't been finding it against the decks that I want it, or I don't have the lands to actually get it going. So I'll get to 4 mana, I'll play it, and then I just won't draw into that, mana of like 5-6. So Retreat still in the deck, but we'll see how it goes. Jide for the FedEx. I do like Jide, and I like that we have Sylvan Library to tutor for it in a way. We can dig for it, which is nice. Bant's going to have a lot of issues with go wide decks, a little bit like green-white, and Gizlo makes a good point of isn't something like Abzan Maverick just better positioned at the moment? And I think that Abzan Maverick, so the Black Splash, is definitely the best positioned right now. I think you get a lot of positives out of cards like Plague Engineer, Abrupt Decay. You can play Thoughtseize in the board, but those two first ones are the big reason to play black right now. Abrupt Decay, really nice because it means your removal is going to stick. There's no worse a feeling than having the Swords to Plowshares for an Arcanist but seeing it getting countered. Abrupt Decay also really nice against creatures and planeswalkers, and things like Sylvan Library, Back to Basics, Equipment. And then Plague Engineer, just really boosting the ability for the deck to have some game against go-wide strategies, whether that's Elves or Young Pyromancer. And even if it's not doing that, it's usually trading for at least one creature and then pulling a removal spell out of your opponent. So it's usually a 2-for-1, which is great because Maverick doesn't have too many outside of a card like Sylvan Library or Nut of Autumn. So that's really nice about the Plague Engineer decks. But yeah, I think the ability to pause your opponent's strategy of going wide with Plague is really nice. Obviously, a deck like Goblins that goes wide doesn't really care about your 8/8 Knight if it has, 6 creatures attacking over 2 turns to win. So Plague there is really good as well. Just an all-around good card. Even something like Rug Delver, where it isn't great in game 1, you can name Wizard, which stops Delvers from being cast and stops Dreadhorde Arcanist from flashing back spells. And then you can also, trade it with a Tarmogoyf if you want, because it has Death Touch. So I do think that Abzan Maverick is better than BANT Maverick at the moment, but I think there's also a need for players to keep trying out different variants of Maverick and seeing how the metagame has sort of positioned them as it shifts week on week or month on month. So hopefully that's enough reasoning. Yeah, Opposition Agent seems really interesting. Opposition Agent is the new card from Commander, where if your opponent would search their library for a spell or ability, I believe you get to control their search, and you get to exile that card, which is pretty cool. So obviously getting great against fetch lands, great against things like Stoneforge Mystic, Green Sun Zenith, Natural Order, great against Doomsday, and I think the deck does have a spot for it. The only issue is that you do have to hold it up, and Maverick isn't that great at holding up mana. It's a lot of the reason why a lot of Maverick players don't like Veil of Summer. Although it's great within the colors that we have, you don't always have the mana for it. So when I was playing Veil of Summer, I was kind of waiting a turn so I could play like a Thalia and also hold up Veil. But the better play was probably just to slam the Thalia, because if it sticks, it's just doing so much more work for that extra turn. So it'll be interesting. I'd love to see some decks that hopefully have it out and put up results with it, but I'm not sure where it's going to fit. I think some players will definitely try it, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I think it really depends on the meta and how many decks are having relevant search abilities, because I think just for fetches, probably not worth it, but if there's a lot of Elves, if there's a lot of like Stoneforge Mystic decks, Green Sun Zenith decks, then it's probably worth having a look at. That's pretty much it. That's it. That's probably the longest deck I've done in a little while. So that was pretty cool. Let's get into some leagues. Hopefully do okay. Yeah, I was thinking about Submerge, because there are a few, at least when I play at this time of night, there are a few green decks running around. So Submerge kind of seems like a cool spell, but I'm playing Path instead. I just think Path's a little bit better and has a little bit more reach. So we'll see how that goes. All right, we are playing Legacy. Oh, there's some prelims coming up. 22 hours. Interesting. So that's tomorrow at around 5:45. That's an interesting one. Let's play Legacy League. Let's use play points. We're playing BANT Maverick. Nice. Nice. Hey, Timmy Tim. Do you remember the night of 21st of September? Night of 21st of September. Should I? Is this a good thing? September 21st was a Monday night. I don't, unfortunately. Mysterious Dates. Hey, Dead of Your Donut. Welcome. Hope you're having a nice week. Hopefully you have aircon at home and you have some sort of aircon at work or in your car. Because it's getting hot, especially for this early. I guess the 4 Misty, that's an interesting one. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Abbas, you make a good point. So Verdant Catacombs can't get the Tundra. So I did do this just for like Sorcerer Spyglass Pith Needle reasons. So all of these can still get Dried Arbor. But there's definitely a reason to run the 4 Misties instead of the Verdants because I can't get the Tundra, which is interesting. And it's a reason actually why I used to play Misty in BANT Maverick and then realized that of course this can't get Scrubland, which is big. So that's a great point. So if you are doing this, definitely play with the 4 Misties. That's an error. What am I drinking? I'm drinking a pale ale, a Pacific ale from Stonewood. A very nice beer. Very nice in the summer heat, I will say. Goes down pretty well. In aircon finishing uni? Nice. Yeah, Uro is an interesting one. So I didn't really touch on Uro. Uro, of course, a card that's taken a lot of formats by storm. For the time I've played it in Maverick, I've never green sunned for it. It's just a really nice value card to have in the deck. And I know against some Delver decks, it can really perform. Just the 3 life in the draw card each turn is so good that it's kind of nice to be able to race an opponent. It's kind of like a massive Lightning Helix +3, which is kind of cool. It can be a little bit awkward because when you want to escape it, you might only have lands and creatures, which you might want to keep the lands for night. You might want to keep the creatures for Scavenging Ooze. So I've found usually just because it's a one-of, it's usually pretty good, but we'll see how it goes. I know Oko is good, but I don't think Oko is a 3-of is a keep. Pretty unfortunate. But this also highlights that this deck does have a fair amount of 3-drops, and it's just another reason why I wanted to run the full 6 mana dorks. So yeah, Uro and Caracas is really nice. Okay, this is actually pretty nice because we get to go turn 1 Zenith, and then we can either play Thalia or Oko on turn 2. So I'm going to keep this and drop 1 Wasteland. Alright. So now we have something that's great for the fair matchups, the mid-range matchups, and then Thalia obviously is pretty good against the unfair decks. Uro and Caracas is really nice, and it's a big reason that if you're playing against Uro and you have Swords to Plowshares, you should always go after... Ooh, just a Vulcan pass. That's interesting. You should always respond to the triggers with Swords to Plowshares, so they can't put in Caracas and then maybe just let it go to the graveyard or try to return it. If they try to return it, you can Swords it, but... This is interesting. I don't mind Thalia, which plays around days, and then next turn I can still play the creature. Getting Oko counted isn't the worst because you have the second, but I don't mind just Thalia here, so we have this extra Wasteland as well. If I jam Oko, it also puts them behind, which is nice, but Thalia just allows me to still attack with the Dryad Arbor. There's a few little things which are nice. I think if I didn't have the land for the Oko, I would think a little bit more about Oko because there's an issue where maybe Thalia taxes me enough the following turn to keep it away. But that's going to stick, which is really nice. Yeah, there's a lot of Rug online. I usually play against it at least once in a league at this time of night, which is fair enough. These things happen, but yeah, really interesting to see. Double blue Ponder. Okay. So what's really nice about Thalia here is that when we get to untap, this Oko is uncounterable because my opponent can't pay for anything here. I don't think there's a reason to go for a Wasteland here. I'd rather just play out the Oko, tick up, and then start beating down the following turn for a fair amount. Create a food. That's interesting. I feel like humans would have a pretty decent Doomsday matchup because of cards like Kitesail Freebooter and of course Meddling Mage, which is nice. But I'm not sure if there's a world where it's faster. I'm going to assume not. Do you own or rent the cards? I luckily have Card Hoarder as a sponsor. So I have an account with them and I get to lend out cards when I want, which is nice. Ooh, okay. That's huge because now we get to Green Sun's Collector Oof and pretty much close out this game. It's going to be pretty hard for my opponent to win this game through a Collector Oof and a Thalia in game 1. So I'm kind of happy they showed me this and they weren't just on something like Grixis. So let's go Collector Oof. Tick up on the food. And attack for 5. The other play was Wasteland my opponent and make the Lotus Petal a 3/3, which is pretty good. I also then get to play the Knight as well, which is pretty interesting. But I think Collector Oof here is just so good at turning off any sort of really explosive LED lines from my opponent. I also have lethal next turn if I draw. I guess I just have lethal next turn because I can make something a 3/3, play Oko, make something a 3/3, and then attack for 11. If I draw a land, it makes it a little bit easier because then I can attack with the Dryad Arbor as well. But we'll see what happens here. Another cantrip, okay. Hey, thanks, Scorpion. Green Suns, interesting. Alright, so they're at 9. We can Oko the Dryad Arbor, make it a 3/3, and then swing for 10. Yeah, nice. Wow, a few spammers here. Just gonna quickly get rid of these guys. Is that when you know you made it? That you've got a few spammers in chat? Alright, this is gonna be Tess, I assume. So, Deafening Silence is great. Meddling Mage is fine. I don't think I want the Torment Crypts. Surgicals are always interesting. Hey Big Geek, thanks for the follow. Let me know where you're from. If you play Legacy, what you play in Legacy. Swords is obviously a card that is just kind of dead in this matchup. Ramanap's probably a little bit too slow. I like Oof. Scribrange is fine at using our creatures a little bit more. Hexdrink is nice as an early aggressive play. Uro is probably also on the kind of meh line. Skyclave is interesting because my opponent played out that Lotus Petal early. That is sort of behavior that I see a lot with test players against Maverick. So Skyclave, although traditionally you don't have great targets for it, if any, if my opponent's going to be playing out LEDs and maybe like Lotus Petals to try to get around Thalia early on, then we do have targets with Skyclave, which is nice. So, interesting card. Prelate, of course, is really nice as well. It's a case of these, which I don't think I want. There's not sort of one card with Surgical that I want to hit. It's not like Ant where they have Past in Flames. So let's take out these. There is some consideration for Uro being better than the second Skyclave. Beast is still nice because it just closes out games fast. Knight of Autumn's nice again because of early things like Lotus Petal or LED to play around Thalia. Maybe a defense grid for my opponent. But luckily we're not playing Mindbreak Trap or Veil of Summer, so we don't really have to care about the Deafening defense grid if that comes in now. I think this is fine. Second look, yeah. There's not a great way, even if they're playing something like Echo of Eons, there's not a great way to target it with things like Tormod's Crypt or Surgical, so I'm just going to go ahead with this. From the UK, very cool. Kaya Orzhov, Usurper, is also a very cool card, and obviously has a place in Green White Black Maverick. This is an interesting hand. It's a little bit light on mana. We have the Savannah, which means we can cast turn 2 Oof, but is that enough? That's the big question. If I draw into creatures, you know, this Meddling Mage isn't coming down until turn... It's probably a turn 3 because the turn 2 Oof is hopefully going to be enough, but... Definitely a tough one. Let's see what we brought in. So we brought in Deafening Silences, Prelate, Meddling Mage. We do have 2 pieces, which is nice, which means we can play around Thoughtseize somewhat, but we are also on the draw, so we are kind of a turn behind. My opponent's kept their 7. Hey, Jack. Hope you're well. We're playing against Tess. We're on game 2. I think that this hand is fine. It's obviously not a great hand because there's nothing like Deafening Silence. There's no Thalia, but I think this is good enough based on the Collector Oof. Yeah, it's tough if they Thoughtseize and take Collector Oof because of the mana, but I think otherwise, I think in a tournament I would keep this hand. We have some good top decks as well, so Tess doesn't play discard. Okay. Except one Thoughtseize. Alright, Jack. I'm going to assume it's the Oof that gets taken here. Opponent on the basic swamp as well, so Wasteland here, not that great. I take the Oof. Yeah, maybe because they're on the play. Okay, that's like probably the best draw that we could have had. It just buys us so much time. Even though Deafening Silence isn't a card that's going to win me the game, it's going to buy me enough time to hopefully set up some other cards that can really set up a nice lock here. Opponent going with the basics. Can't Thoughtseize the top of our deck. Thankfully. This is Ant. Yeah, I guess we only saw the blue cantrips. Hexstring is interesting, so they chose not to shuffle. Unfortunately here it's just Hexstring can pop up Hexstrinker. Yeah, so game 1 we saw Lotus Petal, Ponders, and Thoughtseizers. And then we kind of got the lock of Thalia and Collector Oof online before they got to show anything else, so... Kudos to my opponent. I think I just assumed Tess because I've obviously seen a lot more of it recently. Yeah, we have some nice pressure. We have Deafening Silence as well, which is keeping our opponent off a few things. What I'm kind of scared of is like an end of turn Echoing Truth or Decay on the Deafening Silence and untap and go off, but we can't really play around that. We can at least try to go off with this Hex Drinker a little bit. They didn't combo game 1. I believe we got a turn 2 Thalia, and then we were able to Green Sun Zenith for Collector Oof the turn after they played out a Lotus Petal, which is really nice. You would assume Doomsday over Tez or Ant? Okay. That's interesting as well, because Meddling Mage is really nice. Outside if they have a line to put the Thassa's Oracle in the bin and then unearth it, but I assume not. Opponent also not going for a dual land there, so wanting to get rid of the cards off Brainstorm, and then is wanting to play around Wasteland even more, so this is a pretty nice spot for us. I think the play here is just Green Suns for Collector Oof. Probably attacking with the Hex Drinker first. Could also play the Meddling Mage on something like Echoing Truth. I think Green Suns for Oof is fine because it gives us 2 pieces of onboard interaction. So let's attack first. Oof's in the... interesting, okay. Maybe the play then is to Green Suns for Scavenging Ooze. And just hold up Scavenging Ooze's ability. In case they want to do something like a Past in Flames line. The other play is Meddling Mage in the blind. Which is pretty interesting. I guess I could hit something like Dark Ritual. But... Dark Ritual's nice because it hits a lot of the decks. Thoughtseize is really the only giveaway we have so far that this could be Ant over Tess. Let's have a look at the deck quickly. It's really only the Collector Oof, which is in the bin, that's relevant. I think it's just got to be Meddling Mage. Meddling Mage still makes it lethal the following turn. Oh, we'll cast the Mage and see what they do. They do nothing. I think it's just Echoing Truth. Because Echoing Truth is probably the only card here that I'm afraid of on the Deafening Silence, outside of maybe Chain of Vapor. But I'm going to say Echoing Truth is the bigger card. Yeah. And then just pump up Hex Drinker. Massacre. That's pretty good, but it doesn't deal with the Hex Drinker. Massacre makes me think this is Ant. That's just one more card that I'm kind of worried about. Oh, Cradle. Gives me 4 mana. That's interesting. Yeah, they just can't beat Hex Drinker. Nice. Hex Drinker is a card that I've been really impressed with as just an early aggressive creature that if you get the stage to put it up to instance or protection from everything, obviously can just be a pretty nice card to win the game with. So luckily get off to a win. Pretty lucky as well. Ant and Tess and those sort of decks can be pretty rough for Maverick, especially in the early game where we're trying to set up and our opponents can try to just combo off without us being able to put a piece on the board. I feel like the Deafening Silence at the top was the biggest game-winning contributor, but that's why we play it. That's why I play 3. You want to see him, and luckily we did. Hey Jack, what are you playing in paper at the moment? And what are your thoughts on BANT Miracles? I'm listening to the latest Everyday Eternal with the BANT Miracles player, who has like a 80% win rate, which is very cool. Magic Turtle. Mark Eric Vott, I believe. Hey Panda, a huge thank you for the 5-month streak. That is very nice. Hope you're well. Hope you're enjoying this content. A huge thank you. And I love the questing beasts. We'll definitely play first. This is an interesting hand. I would call this a 6 because of the cradle. Playing against Yorion, which gives some of this away, I'm going to mulligan this. I want a hand with a little bit lower to the ground, and this is perfect. Turn 1 Noble, turn 2 Sylvan Library to keep us up. And I think because they're on Yorion, I'm going to drop the Wasteland. Because I really want my my early mana. And if I want the Wasteland, I can find it with Knight. So let's go for a Savannah and play this Noble. Ooh, okay. Well, it is going to be D&T, so luckily we do have the swords here, which is really nice. And Sylvan Library, which is really good if they don't have Spirited Labyrinth. And here I'm pretty happy just to go for another Savannah. Even try to hide the blue in game 1. Another mum. Okay. Ooh, Oko's pretty good. So here I kind of want to shuffle. I guess I can also Oko the mum to turn it off, so I think I'm happy to put these on top. I don't want to pay for them yet. I want to have some better cards on top, but at the same time, I do want to dig a little bit. So this is an interesting one, because the Knights will be 4/4s, which is great. Seeing this Oko is going to turn the mum into a 3/3. I'm going to pay for 1. I want to dig a little bit, and then just play the Oko, tick up on the mum, and pass. Oh, looks like my opponent also has a Swords to Plowshares, and they're wanting to Swords the Noble here, which would be really bad. Please don't. Oof. That was very close. Maybe that's a consideration for why I should have got the Scavenging Ooze instead of the Knight. But I guess we'll see how this works out. Skycup's pretty good, especially if it takes out, okay, the Uro. Not the worst. But something like Flicker Wisp here is pretty brutal. Okay. No land yet. Put on top, put on top. I'm a little bit concerned about them just going after my life total, seeing that I'm at 11, so I don't mind the Knight here. But this is where the lines with Oko can be a little bit rough. Another Skyclave, wow. Oh, Cradle is pretty good, but I don't want to pay for it. It kind of comes back as well to just not taking the ooze early on, because then I would have been able to play the ooze and another creature this turn. But just a really fast start for my opponent with these Skyclave apparitions have been so good. Vial's fine. Get Yorion on hand, okay. Yeah, Yorion with these Skyclaves is going to be brutal. So I feel like here, I kind of need to just... So Yorion's in hand. They obviously have a 5th land. I feel like I need to go for a shuffle here. Oko doesn't really do anything. And the other card doesn't do anything, so... Just gonna go for a fetch land. Unless I want the extra life. Yeah, it might just be a Tundra. I floated white already. So see if we can find removal here. Not good enough. Put on top. Put on top. I'm gonna use Scrib Ranger now. That means in my actual turn, I get to do some shenanigans. So we get to go float a green. Untap Knight. Get back Savannah. Play Savannah. White 3, play Knight. And then I kind of need to use the life gain, I think. Maybe not. Maybe it's worth just taking out the vial. It just sucks because obviously Karakas is a pretty horrible answer to Yorion. So I think honestly here we just get in. For 6. Really tough start with these Skyclaves. The basics are a little bit rough as well because we weren't able to disrupt their mana in any capacity. Crude is pretty good. That's going to resolve. Hey Nathan, hope you're well. Currently up against Death and Tax's Yorion build in game 1. Looking pretty rough. They get another Skyclave apparition, which is really nice. I think the black version is a lot better, but obviously BANT's pretty rough because we don't have a great way other than swords to deal with things. So we can untap Knight, return Savannah. Sack Tundra. I'm gonna go for a Canopy. Untap. Green Suns is interesting. Green Suns means we can get Questing Beast, which is kind of sweet on this board. put on top. What am I doing this turn? Let's have a quick look. I think I'm just attacking with everything and a questing beast. Yeah. I guess I can draw that anywhere off the canopy if I want to. So we can go land. I don't think I want to draw the Oko here. If I draw the Oko, can I cast it? I don't believe so. So let's just go 5 green suns for 4. Uro is also interesting. The question is, do I need to Uro, or can I just go for questing beast this turn? I feel like beast is okay. So we're attacking with Knight, Scrib Ranger, and Knight. And Beast. I think it's just try to race them, but it's a tough one. I think it's just, yeah, just try to race here. I should probably draw a card here as well to see if I can draw into Swords to Plowshares. Scavenging Ooze. I could attack with the Knight, but they get to block easily with the Mum. But that means the Mum can't block one of these, which is kind of nice. So I think I do attack with the Knight of Autumn. Even though it's an easy block for my opponent. Play the Ooze as a blocker. Pass. So now my opponent needs 2 removal spells to deal with the 2 blockers. I guess if they have Caracas, it's a done deal. Because they do have the Skyclave. Yep, which takes out the Questing Beast, I assume. It can't be Swords to Plowshares, which is nice. Nice! Yes! That was a tough one. Far out. And it was just the going for the Questing Beast there and getting that extra damage in, because I think our only way was to pressure them like that. Thalia is coming out. Jide, of course, is really nice. Force of Vigor is pretty good. Part to Exile is really good. I think it's just these. Yeah, Scrib Ranger was nice. Yeah, Scrib Ranger is really nice. I think what I could have done there better is earlier on in the game, taking the Scavenging Ooze as my earlier card instead of another 3-drop, just so I had that turn where I could have played the Screws and the Knight, thanks to Cradle. I think that's the only changes. Yeah, this looks pretty good. I think this is okay, but it's an interesting one. I haven't got any of the courts. I haven't even read most of the courts, unfortunately. I am going to keep this. I think it's a pretty good one. Especially if they start on Vile. Yeah. Oh, Cradle's pretty good. This makes me want to just go for basic. Hey G-Stit, thank you. This is an interesting one. Savannah Swords is... Swords Wasteland is obviously the biggest blowout. But... yeah. I don't mind Savannah Noble. It also turns on Skyclave if we really need it. If all goes well, next turn I get to play Hexdrinker and Knight of Autumn. This is fine. Jit's okay. Oh, Scrib Ranger? Wow. One. Can I attack with the Noble Hierarch this turn with Jide? One creature? So I play Scrib Ranger. I untap this, return this. Two creatures. Hexdrinker. Oh, so close. So close. Let's just hope they don't have Mum. Hexdrinker first. Cradle. Knight of Autumn. No one drop on time? Oof, that is... That's pretty good for us. This is huge if we get to attack with the Umezawa's Jide before they do. They probably go after the Cradle here, but we'll see. They might even just keep up the Jide. Wow. Wow. Alright. So they're prioritizing the Stoneforge Mystic because they want to get in next turn. So I think here we just go for Skyclave on the Stoneforge. Oh, so we can go... Scrib Ranger's free, I believe, here. So we can go like this. We can go... Scrib Ranger first. Untap Noble, return the Savannah. Play the Savannah. We have access to 4, 5, 6 mana, which is so close to Skyclave and Jide. Skyclave's obviously the safer choice here. So I think it's just Skyclave and then pump up Hexdrinker. Wow, not even putting anything in. That's really interesting. Now I kind of feel like Jide is just better than anything else. So I'm going to play Jide. And then, just in case of like Aven Mind Sensor, I don't really want to trade the Hexdrinker for that. So I'm pretty happy just to attack with Exalted with the Knight. So they didn't use Port, and they didn't put anything in off Stoneforge, which is really interesting. I think Cradle was MVP there, but just an interesting, interesting game. I think the card that gets him out of that is having naturally Batterskull in hand to put into play, untap, have the 4th mana, put in Jide and attack with Jide on the Batterskull. That's probably pretty devastating. Because that line would also deal with the Hex Drinker. Unless, because they put in the Batterskull, I probably wouldn't play the Jide myself. I would tick up the Hex Drinker to be a 4/4. I saw Anzi was playing the blue Monarch enchantment court in, I think, BANT in his 4-color deck or 3-color deck with Icefang. And he said he hasn't found the deck for it yet, but obviously it's a pretty powerful card. Skyclave there, really nice. Skyclave just being able to deal with the Stoneforge was awesome. And to give them a 2/2 isn't that bad, because in Maverick you have a lot of creatures that are bigger than 2/2s. That's probably the nice thing about Skyclave in Maverick, is that even a 4/4, if you exile something like a Karngrit, the Great Creator, isn't too worrying. You know, you have another Reliquary, which is usually bigger. Hex Drinker can get pretty massive, but probably by then you're winning anyway. Scavenging Ooze, Tireless Tracker, if you're playing Tireless Tracker. I don't know, I don't think Skyclave does what I really want for BANT, which is we don't have a way to answer go wide strategies, but Skyclave at least allows you to stop some of it. So I think like not playing Plague Engineer or, you know, Zealous Persecution, something like that is a little bit worrisome right now. I think that's where Abzan just has the best take on Maverick. Because yeah, with green, white, and BANT before Oko and Skyclave, which is still 1-for-1, you had to really rely on your Swords to Plowshares to remove creatures. And if you didn't have them, then most opponents just run away with the game with something like a Goblin Lackey or a Delver or a Dreadhorde Arcanist these days. So yeah, having Decay as well is nice. It's just nice that it's main deckable removal that's also a creature, so it can pressure your opponent, and it's also removal that you can find off Once Upon a Time if you're playing that, because sometimes when you're wanting, you really just want to be finding removal, but you're just wanting for the sake of trying to, you know, obviously get some more creatures on the field. So yeah, I think that the Skyclave has a really good position in Maverick. You can't leverage its ETB effects like Death and Taxes can with things like Flicker Wisp, but I still think just playing it, removing something that you really care about, can go a long way, because, you know, BANT doesn't have a great answer other than combat damage to Oko, but Skyclave kind of answers that, which is nice. Uro is pretty hard to deal with if you just don't have the Swords to Plowshares, but thankfully Skyclave is also pretty good. Yeah, it's a pretty cool design. I think it's up there with like Elvish Reclaimer. It's these really powerful cards that aren't having too much effect on the format, that are seeing light play. But I did see that Skyclave Apparition is now the #1 played creature in Modern, which is pretty fascinating. I'm not sure the last time a white creature took that. Reclaimer is broken? I think Reclaimer is very powerful, but you do have to kind of build around it. The only reason that I don't like playing Reclaimer in Maverick is that it kind of makes you play a lot of the time Bojuka Bog in the main deck, which is of course a card that comes in tapped, which I think is a pretty big restriction. But I think it's very easy to play a non-Maverick Reclaimer deck that is very powerful. And I think that Franz obviously has found that with green-white Reclaimer. You think Reclaimer is bad? Interesting. Do you just not think it does anything for the decks that play it against their bad matchups? Hey Julian, welcome. I'm currently in the middle of the latest Everyday Eternal, and really enjoying it. It's really nice. For anyone wanting to catch it, here is the link. I feel like I'm playing Pokemon, but like an Australian version with your commentary. Yeah, it's really good. It's I really enjoy it. This is an interesting hand. It's kind of a 5 with the Dried Arbor and the Cradle, but Birds into Sylvan Library and then a Wasteland could be good. In this meta with so many basics, I'm not sure if this is where I want to be. I mean, without the Sylvan Library resolving, then this hand doesn't really do anything. And Sylvan Library is a card that I think has a massive target on its head for Force of Will deck, so I'm going to mulligan this. I think there is a better start. This is so close, but the Cradle's following us as our only green source. Yeah, this is a tough one. Especially on the play, I think it's worth just going to a 5 that works. And thankfully with Oko in the deck, we can hopefully get there. This is actually not too bad because we get to go Cradle to the bottom and Dried Arbor. And now we also have Sylvan Library to keep us from dying. Alright, good luck opponent. We're just going to go for Savannah into our Green Suns. Nice. Yeah, that's very true, Haran. I think the Reclaim is a really cool card to build around, but ooh. I think I just want a Wasteland here, but Stifle's a little bit rough. I can play around Daze anyway by just keeping up the Wasteland, so I'd rather play around the Stifle and just play Thalia here. That's pretty huge, because if they Dazed, it's a little bit rough for us, so I think here it's just trying to put them behind a little bit here. And hopefully drawing a land to play the Sylvan Library next turn. There was some consideration to keeping the land for Library, but I think this just puts them back so much because of Thalia also taxing them. And at least if they play like a Delver here, then we do have the swords. Okay, well Cradle's really nice. Cradle means we can attack with both creatures. Could any sword in Modern replace Maul of Skyclave in Death and Taxes? Maul of Skyclave is a really fun card to play with. And it was really impressive as well. The ability to just find it and then put it on a creature that's already in play just saves so much time that it's really effective in its mana cost. Opponents played a tap Mystic Sanctuary, so what I'm looking for is some more pressure to keep this clock going, because I'm a little bit scared of it right now. Yeah, I thought it was really nice. A lot of the time it got me over... Oh, don't... I didn't mean to... Didn't mean to 6 there, my bad. So we have 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. I'm probably okay with just swords here and then Green Suns next turn. Let's have a think. Two, 3, 4, 5. So I could Green Suns for Ramanap, which is interesting. Could Green Suns for Knight. I could Green Suns for Uro. I think it's a case of just while they're tapped out. This is pretty scary because if they go wide, then I'm definitely going to go down on this game. So I think it's a case of just going for Swords attack for 3. Speaking of tunnel vision, that's a big part of my game plan that I can build on, because a lot of the time I have a plan in mind and I kind of don't take into consideration other things I can be doing. This is pretty interesting because I can, with Uro trigger on the stack, tap Cradle for 3 for Green Suns, but they're at 11. I think Ramanap is probably best here because of the Wasteland, because they missed a land drop. Especially for a Mystic Sanctuary blue-white deck, it's probably pretty good to try to turn off their ability to get to 4 mana, so something like Teferi. So let's Green Suns for 5. Oof, okay. Let's go for that Ramanap. Let's get back Wasteland. And hit this. Swords on Thalia. That's okay. See if they're more than just the blue-white. Tundra. Council's Judgment, okay. Birds. Let's go for... Definitely playing Uro. I kind of want to cast the birds here as well, I believe. I'd rather cast the birds than get the 1 in. Should definitely have drawn the card first, because if you draw a land, you want to put it into play. But Knight's pretty good. Supreme Verdict here would be pretty good, because it turns off the Cradle as well. Jace is pretty good. Skyclave, okay. That's pretty good. 2, 4, 6 mana. We only have 2 white. Nice. It's pretty good. That's Skyclave doing what Skyclave does best. Pond is good to see. Gideon, okay. Gideon's pretty cool. Wasteland, okay. I think it's the Krakus that I care about because my opponent does have the play of making Gideon the 5/5 legendary creature, returning it to the hand and recasting it for extra value, but I think just because of cards like Thalia, I'd rather get rid of it now as well. I could also cast Uro here, which is really nice. I think Uro is just a little bit better, but it does make Knight worse. Maybe I'd rather bait a Swords with the Knight and then leave the Uro for later on. Opponent has 2 cards left. I could have tapped differently, I think, as well, to be able to cast the Uro this turn as well. Just in case I did have a force. Yeah. I could have. That's going to be fine. I don't think I want to overextend anyway, because something like Supreme Verdict off the top with Gideon in play is just so good for my opponent. That's a good sign for us. That means no, another Jace. Okay. Maybe Jace bounce Skyclave? That's pretty interesting. Jace bounce the Knight. Okay. Oh, they're going to attack. That's really interesting. Alright. Getting a little bit aggressive. Oh, swords does mean we get to kill... So close. I guess we get to kill the Jace here, which is pretty cool. Unless they have Force. 2 cards left in hand. Ah, it is. Rough. Okay. I think now is time for Uro. Just to try to get that card advantage. It does make the Knight worse. I think I'd rather make them get rid of the Knight somehow and then get Uro going. But it's a tough one. Just being able to try to get this Wasteland lock going with Knight would be great. What did they name? Force. Okay. Wow, digging, unless my opponent found a, I'm assuming they found a fetch land. No land drop yet. Wow, no land drop yet. Was that a beer? Jimmy MTG, you know it. Another Knight. Well, I'm definitely going after the Tundra, and I think it's the Dried Arbor that's done enough work here. I'm gonna hit the one that's untapped. They don't float any mana. Okay. Alright, okay, now's your time. Ramanap's already gone, so I might as well just get rid of Wastelands. Draw a card first. Okay. That's interesting. Now play my second Knight and pass back. Planeswalkers are a little bit scary here, but being able to hit my mana, oh, haha, maybe I should have seen that coming. I think we just concede to that, unfortunately, especially being off the mana as well. This is going to be an interesting one. Yeah, I did play it in a way that I didn't want to overextend early on, and then I kind of played into just overextending, so... The big one there was my opponent having the Force for the Swords to Plowshares on their only blocker to get rid of the Jace. That was pretty brutal. I think Collector Oof is probably not where I want to be here. Ramanap was good there, but otherwise I don't think Ramanap is where I want to be, but it's an interesting card. I think I can drop down on one Knight. Just a little bit too fair in this sort of matchup. I don't think I want the Jide, but I could be tempted. It does make a lot of my creatures more favorable, but I think because they are on blue-white, probably playing Supreme Verdict and Terminus, I'm going to drop down on Probably Gilded Goose and a Noble Hierarch. Birds. Actually, maybe it's better to have the Exalted creatures in the deck. I thankfully do own BANT Maverick. You prefer Knight over Swords to Plowshares? Yeah, I think that some number of swords can definitely go as well. There's some thought to Jide, because it can act like a removal spell, but I'm not too sure what their creatures would be. Yeah, Jide versus Mentor is actually a pretty good reason to bring them in over something like swords. And then I think it's just these two. And that's 60. I could trim on a Wasteland if I really wanted to, but I don't think any of these cards are better. Maybe Knight is better than Wasteland. Yeah, Jide is an interesting one. I think because it just makes all my creatures, hopefully, a threat, that's enough. Because if I can make my opponent maybe Swords to Plowshares a Noble Hierarch, I'm going to be pretty happy with that. We did see Mystical Sanctuary as well, but I'm not sure if that makes me want to use anything like Tormod's Crypt or Surgical. I did shave on a Wasteland. I'm kind of thinking about Cradle, because this is a deck where if I overextend, it's going to really hurt me. I might just do something like this. I don't mind that Goose makes the food as well. Alright. This is sweet. Turn 2 Oko. Happy to keep this. Yeah, it does seem pretty greedy bringing in Retreat, but hopefully I see it, because I haven't really seen it in the matchups where I've brought it in the past, and I don't really want to put 2 in the sideboard. I'd rather just keep the 1 as kind of a card that I can see mid to late game. Oh, a Mystic Sanctuary, okay. I think because of the amount of 3 drops in our hand, I could just go Uro into Wasteland. That's pretty good. I actually really like that. Just to build out our board. Draw a card first. Misty. We'll put in Wasteland. Yeah, the COVID situation in Australia is actually pretty good, which is nice. Brisbane, where I live, has been pretty good throughout. We only had a few days, or a few weeks where we were kind of like in lockdown, but other than that, pretty good. Yeah, Fridge, I can definitely see the thought process there. That does make a lot of sense. Let's quickly see what our opponent did with a Ponder. They chose not to shuffle. Interesting. I'm gonna play a land, but I'm gonna keep the Misty around. I can either keep the Misty as a resource, or I can fetch now, and if the Oko gets countered, then I can... Questing Beast is also pretty nice. I think it's just Oko. It doesn't play around Force of Negation. I could play Questing Beast here and swing for 5. But I Alright. It's Beast. I think playing around Force of Negation is good enough. And if this causes a Force of Will, I'm not too unhappy. It means it's 1 less force going on the Oko, so... Yeah, it also just makes use of my mana quite efficiently, which is nice. Okay. Chat demands a QB sacrifice. Brainstorm's okay. Opponent is Omnitel. Hey, UA. Opponent is on what looks to be like a blue-white control deck. I don't believe we've seen a green source yet for BANT, but game one they had Gideon and Jace, so I'm gonna think they are just a straight blue-white kind of, maybe Stoneblade or maybe just blue-white control. Judgment. Judgment's pretty good. I guess I could have attacked last turn as well. Probably the better case to do. I think we took out Ramanap. Oh, we didn't. Interesting. I kind of like Ramanap here because it's just one turn closer to getting Wasteland online. I think keeping them off 4 mana is pretty huge. Another force, rough. Stoneblade likely wouldn't have Terminus. Yeah, that's very true. I could definitely see that a reason why you wouldn't say it's Stoneblade. I think just bounce the Noble here, yeah. Ooh, Skyclave's actually pretty nice. Maybe I want to keep the Skyclave for now and just play the Knight. I think Knight has the biggest upside as well when it comes to mana. A little bit stumbling a little bit here on mana, but I think we're in an okay position. But I'm definitely missing out on those extra land drops. Because I think my opponent is going to be able to answer my 1-for-1 removal pretty well. Okay. Still no land drop from my opponent. I kind of want to go for a basic here, but I could be stretched. Hey Jim Miles, thanks for the follow. Let me know where you're from. If you play Legacy, what do you play in Legacy? Containment Priest. Okay. Interesting. Probably a card I should have thought about. There's the 4th mana, which is pretty huge. Jace is pretty big as well. Especially if they bounce Skyclave. No, okay. That's pretty interesting, because now they can lose by us swordsing the Containment Priest and attacking for 3 with Exalted at the Jace. I believe in Northern Territory, Julian, you can eat snake, but it's definitely not something that we have on the board. Or on the menu, sorry. They bounce Skyclave, they lose Jace too. If they bounce Skyclave, they get... I guess, yeah, that's very true. Okay. I forgot about the ETB. You own Black-Green Depths? Okay, that's cool. Nice. I like that a lot. I think just putting out the Knight here is fine. I could go for the Uro, which is interesting. Maybe that's just a little bit better. Yeah, I don't mind Uro here. because it allows me to keep cards in hand and hopefully put some more into my hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll keep that Wasteland for Ramanap. Draw a card first. Hopefully it's Wasteland. Oko. Still pretty good. Yeah, I think Abzan is definitely the Maverick archetype that's putting up the most results. But it is good to see. I would love to see some more. They're going to return Uro. That's interesting. That's a really interesting play. Does this mean they have to have Swords to Plowshares? I wish I had an extra land because I could go Sylvan Library and Oko, make Noble a 3/3 and attack Narset. I'll go to attacks first. Attack Narset. See what they have. They have a Swords, okay. Not too bad. Because it means now they can't have Force of Will for Oko or Sylvan Library. Sylvan a little bit worse because of the Narset, but I think that's going to be fine. I'm going to create... Yeah, I'm going to make this a 3/3. That also gives me a creature on board that can either block the illusion or hopefully kill the Narset next turn. Predict. Okay. So you get to ponder first. I am down on time a little bit, so I apologize for not being in chat so much. It's nice to see you guys just having your own ecosystem and talking away. Like the nice people that you are. But I definitely don't want to lose this game to time. I really want to find a Green Suns to get this Wasteland online. I like that. I think that's a cool name. Okay, what do I want to do here? Opponent has kept those cards. I'm probably okay with making the Noble a 3/3 and just attacking the Narset with both creatures. It means they have to have a removal spell as well. I could also go after the illusion here. I don't mind this, because then it means that the Narset dies and it turns on the Sylvan Library. Wow, they're going to force that. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Let's go to attacks. Because if they want to spend a removal spell on one of these to stop my Sylvan Library from working, it means I get to play out the Uro, which is really nice. Oh, the Knight, sorry, which turns on a... Surely they have a removal spell. There we go. Okay, that's fine. They're down to 0 cards. Let's play the Knight. And pass. I think they know the top of their deck, so maybe they have just like Terminus on top and wanted to make that trade to clear the board, but we have so many cards in hand that I'm probably more than happy with that. Predict. They drew 2. Okay. Well, that's definitely a start for them. Brainstorm. Okay. Really trying to dig here. Rest in peace. That's actually not the worst, because we have the Knight of Autumn already. So we get to go... Knight of Autumn. Destroy this. Attack Narset. Nice. Create a food. Play a land and pass. I also don't mind end step, fetch, and draw. Two mana predict. Okay. What do they name? Maybe like Force of Negation? Maybe Island? They named Snow-Covered Island and they hit it? Wow. I guess they knew that from the brainstorm last turn, so it doesn't... Yeah, that's fair. Alright. Fetch. Snow. Draw. Thalia's cool. Alright. I think I'm just paying 8 here, let's be honest. Gonna go for Wasteland. Wasteland the Caracas. Nice. Now let's Green Suns. Get Ramanap. Get that Wasteland back. Go after that Tundra. Okay. I'm gonna make the food a creature. I kind of want to get in a position where I can just 6 most of my time to try to save some time here. Because going into the third round down 3 minutes is pretty huge. Terminus is okay. Land from my opponent. 1 card in hand. Put on top. Put on top. There's not really 1 card that I'm thinking about right now. I do want to fetch away those cards. Gonna get a Savannah. I'm gonna use these to cast Uro. Draw a card first. Oh, Wasteland's pretty good. I think getting a creature into play is better. The food token in our library is going to be a pretty awkward draw. I have had opponents in Paper who have their food tokens in the same sleeves as their deck, and they've shuffled, and then halfway through game 2 or 3, they've drawn the food token and been like, what? Pretty funny. Council's Judgment, perhaps? That'd be pretty good for my opponent. Wow, just an untap, okay. That happened to you in Beijing, Julian? What's the name of the big Beijing Legacy tournament? Kind of scared of the, like, From the Ashes. It's a pretty good card. I don't mind Hex and just putting some mana into it, but keeping up Scrib Ranger. Yeah, it does feel nice to be able to wasteland a control player, because usually they have so many basics that it's kind of irrelevant. But thankfully here it's okay. Okay. We have 8 minutes. Which means I kind of want to play a little bit more aggressively. So I wonder if that changes anything that I want to do in the sideboarding. Looking at what we saw, there's no reason to bring in the Force or the Collector Oof. I don't think Surgical or Tormod's Crypt is really needed. We know they have Mystic Sanctuary, but I think that's okay. The Orlov, that's it. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it looked really good. I saw that Sean Brown was there and had a photo with you guys, which is really cool. I believe he went after he was at GP Shizuoka. He went straight to the Chinese tournament after that, which is cool. Cut Jide, bring in Waste. Yeah, it does look like they do run a few basics, so I'm going to take out that. I do like that, even though I want to be aggressive in this matchup. I think this is looking pretty good. Maybe even bringing in the extra Swords to Plowshares on the draw and taking out a Meddling Mage. Mage is a tough one because it's so... It's really dependent on what's in front of you. There's not like one card that I can name. Like Terminus, Council's Judgment, Swords to Plowshares. There's so many cards that I kind of have to worry about. Who is Sean Brown again? It could be a case of just wanting to make sure I have as many turn 1 plays as possible to try to get a turn 2 3-drop. So maybe I don't mind having the extra burden as well. Sean runs a dating podcast now? I believe so. I believe something like that. Which is cool. Obviously a man of many talents. Also being a chemical engineer, I think. Alright, so really need to make sure we keep our eyes on the prize this game because we're down to single digit time. It's always a tough matchup here because Maverick is a deck that kind of has to go wide against these Swords to Plowshares Council Judgment decks. But if we... I think this hand is okay. It's just a little bit annoying with the Dryad Arbor, but... I mean, turn 1 Hierarch, we have Green Suns, we have Ooze. Pretty happy for this. It has cards that are relevant. Ponder chose not to shuffle. It's a pretty good draw. Thalia is really nice. Caracas is a great answer to Thalia here, which is pretty rough. So I think it's just going to be land into Scavenging Ooze, just to get a creature on the field. I'm going to use a fetch land here, just to get a drop. Play Ooze. And pass. Spell Snare would be pretty good. Brainstorm, okay. Krakus has really picked up in Legacy. Yeah, that's fair enough. Especially with Death and Taxes also coming back into play. There's a few around. I'm not too sure why. Like, it's obviously not a great answer to Uro, which is probably the legendary creature seeing a lot of play. Maybe it's because a lot of blue decks just want a kind of clean answer to Thalia. Bouncing your own creatures isn't too bad if you're playing some legendary creatures. It's because it answers Uro, to be honest. Okay. It's a tough answer to Uro, because then you're just giving them, obviously, more cards, which is pretty tough. Come on, Oko. Oko off the top would be really good. Obviously pretty easy to say, but... I think I still play the Thalia next turn. Just to tax them off the Karakas. I think that's worth it. If I draw a Wasteland, that's great. If I draw an Oko, that's great. But I think that Thalia here is more than fine. I might even just hold up the Ooze as well because of that Swords to Plowshares in the bin. I don't want Snap Swords to be a thing, so I'd rather miss out on the 1 damage here by eating the Mentor by holding up the green for Swift Spear. They're gonna fetch. Probably finding a Tundra, yeah, okay. Could be probably a Council's Judgment if they're going for a second white source. If they Council's Judgment, I eat the Mentor. Swords on that. I think in response we just eat the other swords. Uro is pretty sweet. Let's attack with Thalia first. They probably Karakas in end step if they see us miss a land drop here in main phase 1. Potentially. They probably also just want to make sure that it's not there on their turn. They're going to do it now. That's really interesting. So let's go with Uro first. Draw an untapped land? No. Okay, we'll put in Dried Arbor. Play this land and pass. What does chat think this Sanctum Prelate should go on if I cast it next turn? Mystic Sanctuary, get back swords, perhaps? Strong play. Yeah, I think it's 1 as well. Hey, thanks, Jimmy. All the best for your week ahead. Gideon's not the worst because we do have, hopefully, next turn. Hopefully they don't have a Force of Will and we can just get our Questing Beast here, which would be pretty awesome. Just hope that Questing Beast sticks. They didn't have a Force... Oh, disconnection from my opponent. That's pretty huge, especially when it comes to time. Yeah, so I think the play is Questing Beast, hold up Karakas, because if they want to go aggressive to try to win the game, we can Karakas the Gideon if we really want to, which can save us a ton of life. But I think here, because the Questing Beast deals with the Gideon, it gets through the night, and the Karakas is currently tapped, it's just the best play. Hey, that's good to hear, Jack. It'd be cool to see the Legacy scene in Melbourne come back to paper. I know that you guys did really well with Webcam Legacy, which is great to hear. Yeah, it's always tough as well because if you do it around Christmas, you might have players who aren't available, and so the players that go see that it's not as popular as it once was and maybe are turned off by that. Moxing Day? I like that. Alright, snow-covered forest. Please. Please work. One time, don't have force. Oh my gosh. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Attack them. Oh, so good. So good. Look at that. Look at that. That's huge. That's such a nice feeling. Mentor is actually pretty good. Huh. I am gonna fetch for the extra white source. Swords Questing Beast. I think in response here I am going to return it, because then I can still cast the Thalia. But Mentor here is very, very scary. Name one. Play Thalia. Yeah, Thalia first is also interesting. But hopefully this is enough to keep them off. Snap Predict is pretty good. I actually feel like I'm having a dream right now and it didn't end well. But yeah, we are 3 minutes up, which is pretty nuts. Our opponent did disconnect for a little while, which is interesting. I really need to find a wasteland for this Caracas. Because if I can get Uro back in play, that would be pretty huge. I kind of want to double block. Is that bad? Double block on Mentor? Double block on Mentor actually seems pretty good, because their way to win this is going wide. They can't pump it, but I guess we can maybe take one more turn. Another Green Suns. 1, 2, so 4, 7 mana. I think the play is Green Suns for Nard the Reliquary. I could also... Maybe it's just play Uro. I can't currently. I actually don't mind Hex Drinker. Tick up to a 4/4. Oh, did I take out Gilded Goose? I didn't. I don't mind Gilded Goose. If I can trade the Mentor for the Hex Drink, I'm pretty happy. Wow, nothing. Okay. That's pretty huge. I like this and then holding up 2 mana for the food. Yeah, they're going to attack with everything. Alright, so let's go to blocks. I think we just block like this. And then before damage gain 2. Unless we don't need to gain 2 here. I guess I do want to use the mana. They're tapping the Caracas, which is interesting. They're tapping the Caracas, which means the Questing Beast is going to get in. Okay. Ooh, oh, so close. Oh, okay. Oh, maybe the play is to Green Suns for Noble Hierarch first to make it. I was gonna say lethal with Questing Beast, but it does mean that 1 more mana is there. I probably shouldn't have done that, but we'll see. I was gonna try to turn off this fetch, if that's relevant. Okay, they're at 1. Alright. Thalia. Dried Up is in the bin, unfortunately. I guess I actually should have used Library. I should have played the Library first. Oh, we still have Uro as well? Rough. I kind of forgot about Uro there. Oh gosh. Yeah, we can draw with Canopy as well, which is nice. Let's do that. Scrib Ranger. Okay, that's pretty good. Skyclave's really good here. Questing Beast is also in the deck. Put on top. Put on top. Skyclave. Take Mentor. And I think the players just hold up Scrib Ranger. Because that is lethal, and it means that if they want to board wipe, it won't hit the Scrib Ranger. Haha! Nice. Always nice to push it to the limits. That is a nice win. I'm sure there's better things I could have done there, but really nice to make sure that we didn't lose that to the Mentor, because that Mentor was really scary, so. Ooh. Alright, we're 3-0. I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick. But before, I will say, XL Sun, thanks for the sub with Prime. That means a hell of a lot. Let me know where you're from. If you play Legacy, what do you play in Legacy? I'll be back in a sec. Interesting times. Yeah, interesting in a deck with Predict as well. You definitely have a little bit more control over when you want to Terminus, which is pretty nice. You're from Sweden, just tuning into the end of that match was pretty sweet. I played Turbideps in Legacy. Turbideps is a very cool deck. Trying out the Rainbow version currently, was planning on getting into Legacy properly this year, but work COVID, that didn't really pan out. What's the Legacy scene in Sweden? Or at least the paper scene where you're from? Hey Crown, thanks for the follow. And don't open the fridge. A huge thank you for the follow. Let me know where you guys are from. If you play Legacy, what do you play in Legacy? But yeah, Hexdrinker there just winning matches. Really nice. I mean, playing the Hexdrinker, making it a 4-4, and then my opponent not swinging in with anything was huge. Oh, okay. This is rough, and this has happened a few times now. We do have the turn 1 Noble, but we don't have... Actually... Oh, we have a turn 2 Oko, because we can go turn 1 Noble Hierarch, turn 2 with the Savannah, play Hexdrinker, play Cradle, and then play Oko. This is sweet, we'll keep this. Oh, hey Peach. Hope you're doing well. Big shout out to Don't Open the Fridge, who did my Knight of the Reliquary emote, which is very cool. So a huge thank you. It's good to have you here. Are you currently in Spain, I'm gonna say? I could be wrong there. Taiga, okay. Most likely a lands-based deck, but you never know. Green, Exploration, okay. Wasteland. Okay. Probably just don't mind Cradle here. I could also get a basic and then play Hexdrinker. I don't mind basic into Hexdrinker. The Cradle I kind of want to keep for a power time, a power move. I can also just play Hexdrinker and hold up the Misty. That's actually pretty nice. Because next turn, 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. Yeah, I don't like cracking the fetch either. Although it is nice to tick up the Hexdrinker, I think I need this right now to not get Wastelanded again, because that would put me back a little bit if they have like Wasteland and Punishing Fire. Or even something like Rishadan Port would be pretty big. But this is not something that I really care about, which is nice. Alright. Oh, Skoos is great. I think it's definitely Oko time, but I could be wrong. I kind of like this. And then just not showing off the Skoos yet. I want to see them do something like Loam first. I also thought they might have had Punishing Fire and was waiting to hit the Hexdrinker, but obviously not. There's Grove. This is free. I guess Blast Zone's a little bit of a blowout here. Maybe that's currently their way to get out of Hexdrinker. Which I don't mind because the Ooze kind of backs it up pretty well. I also can just get comboed here, so I kind of want to play Screws and then just hold up the swords. Yeah, I'm just trying to... I'm probably giving Punishing Fire here just too much respect. This is fine. Interesting that they copied Cradle. Why would they copy Cradle? They have no creatures. Ah, so the field triggers. Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's cool. Ramanap's pretty sweet. I'm definitely going to play Ramanap first. Play the Savannah. Take up Hex. I probably don't mind trading the zombie with the Dryad Arbor here and then swinging. But maybe that's too aggressive. I'm just going to create a food. Two, four, six. Yeah, I'm just going to create a food and then attack with the Hex Drinker. With Exalted, it's a 5/5, which is nice. This just means they can't fetch and then double block, and I'll have to use the swords. So I don't mind this. This is fine. The Hex Drink is going to be really nice. Blast Zone's obviously a really nice out for my opponent because it deals with Hex Drinker, Noble Hierarch, but otherwise... Valorant Exploration is okay. So they get to fetch. Tabernacle isn't the worst because Ghost Court is tapped and we have out the Cradle. They find a Mox. And they have one card in hand. Reclaim is fine. And that's just going to be a pushback. Okay. Untap. Alright. Just going to pay for all of these. Nice, okay. They're just making us do it. That is more than fine. So here I like the Crypts, I like the Force, I like the Surgicals. Path is an interesting one. I don't mind a Path. I definitely don't like the Thalias. Everything else is pretty good. I could see myself dropping down on maybe the Collector Oof. It does hit Mox Diamond, but I think we have enough answers to that anyway in things like Skyclave, Oko. Maybe the extra path isn't needed because of the Skyclaves. I think this is fine as a 5 for 5. I like Skoos. Sylvan Library is really nice. It kind of makes them have to have an answer for it, or else we can really pressure their life total, because a lot of their pressure is pretty mid to late game through field, or of course maybe a fast. You know what it is. 2020 Marriage. But see how this goes. Depths. Yeah, thanks, Crown. I was forgetting Marriage's name. Prelate's actually also an interesting one because we can name 2 to turn off Loam, Punishing Fire, a few other things. So I might actually just quickly switch this up. And I might just... No. Classic. This is a pretty great hand. Early Mana Acceleration, Scavenging Ooze for the Graveyard, and Force of Vigor. I'm more than happy to keep this. No, you will not. Yeah, unfortunately. Reclaimer, okay. That is fine. Wasteland. I'm just gonna go for a basic here. And play Noble. Just really make sure I can build up my mana early on. Taker's pretty good. Is this a Punishing Fire? Just a Bolt. Okay, that's interesting. Another Reclaimer. Surgical's interesting because it does mean I can play this Scavenging Ooze out and know it won't be bolted. So I don't mind that. Because I do want to play the Skoos out when these are just 1/2s. Loam, Red Elemental Blast, Valakut. Okay, so they have one more bolt. They do have Punishing Fire in here as well. They brought in Pyroblast just for the Okos, which is interesting. They're also playing 2 Tabernacles, which maybe is normal. I just haven't seen that before. Now, I don't mind just going for probably Savannah into Skoos. I kind of want to keep the Noble Hierarch for the Valakut so I can get this Force out of my hand, but see how this goes. There's Sylvan Library. Okay, so that's another great card to try to deal with. Maybe that's actually worth it. I actually like doing this a lot because I don't want them to be able to untap with the Sylvan Library. Now I think I'm pretty happy to go for Hex Drinker. And just try to race them a little bit. I don't like wastelanding them just yet. I think the mana, especially for Hex Drinker, is a little bit more beneficial for us than it is taking them off a land. But if they miss another one, maybe it's worth it because of a card like Valakut Exploration. And if I am going to do it, I'm going to do it when they're tapped out. Because of Elvish Reclaimer, I don't want to wasteland a land and then just have them sack it, so we'll have to do that. Okay. The nice thing here is that I can make this a 3/3 and start attacking with both pretty aggressively. I think I want to keep the Wasteland open. I think that's better than keeping up the Scavenging Ooze. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep open the mana there. Now I'm going to go all in on this Hex Drinker. Get it up to 4. And then if we... This might incentivize our opponent to go a little bit higher with Wasteland here. Maybe like Wasteland us, loam it back, Wasteland us. Oh, another Wasteland's pretty big. Blast Zone is definitely a card that I have to worry about. But it means they kind of have to keep the Wasteland up. They don't. Interesting. Now they're going to loam them back, which is probably fine. That's okay. That's interesting. Now they're attacking. Okay. Cradle. Okay. I think I want to take out the loam here, though. I don't just want to get this to a... This is actually a really interesting decision. 6, 10... I think it is correct just to tick up the Hex Drinker here and not care about the loam. Oh, you're saying I should have played the Dryad instead of the Cradle as my land for turn? Yeah, unfortunately it's a land. All good, man. I've been there. But this is a tough spot. I think it's the Hex Drinker just because it's easy. It's a lot harder for my opponent to deal with, especially with the Wasteland in play. Yeah. Yeah, I like this plan because it's a 2-turn clock. Because it means that they have to hold up mana for Blast Zone, but then they just lose, hopefully, their following turn anyway. They kind of have to, like, Wasteland, hold up Reclaimer for Blast Zone, but then they're off mana anyway. So I think they need to naturally draw into Blast Zone or Crop Rotation. Yeah. So this is going to be interesting to see how they do it. They're also allowing us to untap. Attack with both. Yeah, it's a tough one because they also sack a land in the process, so they don't have the mana the following turn, unless they have like a Mox Diamond hand for the Blast Zone. So luckily we get there. I'm at the 4-0 mark, which is nice. It's been pretty interesting. It's interesting to think about some of these games and how much the blue has been a factor. I think Oko has been enough of a factor for this to be called like the blue actually matters. Uro as well has bought some time, which is nice. So I wouldn't say that these games would have gone the same way if I was just playing green white. but pretty close to it. I think a lot of these matchups wouldn't have been too different without that. Hey, Hordog, thank you very much. Yeah, sometimes just the cards line up nice, which is good. A few opponents pretty unlucky, but I'm more than happy to jump on that advantage and take it while I can. But the decks seem pretty nice. There have been some awkward hands with the Cradle and Dryad Arbor, but that's just going to happen. That's just something you have to accept as a Maverick player. I was thinking I did have a build with Brainstorm, which is really cool. So it's kind of based off a version that I was playing a while ago, but Matt Vuk has actually toyed around with. So this is a BANT deck with Brainstorm as well. Brainstorm's pretty nice because I'm gonna cancel this for a second. There's definitely been issues with Maverick where you draw an opening with something like Collector Oof and you find out your opponent's on elves and it doesn't do anything. So you do have some issues where you don't have great ways to play with... You can draw the wrong side of your deck, that's what I'm trying to say. And Brainstorm allows you to put them back, which is really nice. It's something that the deck doesn't really have access to. You do have fetch lands, and then on top of that you have Green Sun, Zenith, and Knights to shuffle. So you're actually a lot less... you're not going to get a Brainstorm block that much, which is nice. You also have Once Upon a Time to clear the top of the deck. So this was really interesting. The only thing that I think that Maverick lacks as a Brainstorm deck is the ability to be an instant speed deck. So you can't take advantage of, Brainstorm in your opponent's turn and then maybe Swords to Plowshares. You're not running like Abrupt Decay or Spell Pierce or something. So it's definitely interesting, and I do like seeing it. It's really cool to see Matt trying it out here and obviously doing really well with it. But yeah, I did want to play this. I took these out and just went up on 4 Once Upon a Times, and then I just wanted to add more creatures, so I just went with more creatures, and it's done okay. So yeah, I think Brainstorm's pretty cool, and it's cool to see more people playing around with it in Maverick. Yeah, especially with Thalia out, it's a little bit tough, but it is what it is. It's cool to see. And no Brainstorm is yeah, that's very true, Giz. The cost of Cradle is obviously pretty rough. There are some builds that are really nice that play Ancient Tomb instead. And then a few creatures. I've seen it in a green-white build with things like Thalia, Heretic Athar, which are great 2-drops that you can play on turn 2 with Ancient Tomb. Also cards like Tireless Tracker and Ramanap Excavator, of course. And you can still Green Suns for 2 without a Mana Dork if you have Ancient Tomb, which is nice. But obviously, when Cradle's good, it's really good. And it's pretty hard to try to match it with another card. I think this hand is okay. It doesn't have a mana accelerant, but I think just, having interaction in Swords and Skyclave, and then Sylvan Library is really nice. So I'm going to keep this. The kind of tough thing is that I don't want to get Wastelanded, so I kind of want to play either the Forest or the Misty. I want to have Swords to Plowshares open on my opponent's turn, so I don't want to play the Snow-Covered Forest, but I don't want to play the Fetch because it can be great with the Sylvan Library. But I think Fetch is just the best here. Because it plays around Wasteland, it allows me to Swords, and it also allows me to untap and Sylvan Library. Delta Pass. Swamp, okay. Duress, interesting. That's gonna be fine. I hope this is a deck where Collector Oof is going to be good. They took the Sylvan Library, which is interesting. I think here we just get I can get Tundra, thankfully. Tundra for the second white source, and just play Collector Oof. Which does buy me some time. you would assume Doomsday. Yeah, I'm not too sure if... I don't think the, the big black decks play Duress. I'll attack first. Play a land and go for Knight. Okay, yeah, that's pretty interesting. Another basic, and just a pass. I'm gonna draw a card. Oko's nice. I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna attack first. If it is Doomsday, I do want to make sure I'm pressuring my opponent. I meant to fetch there to get the extra damage in, but I didn't have the block on there because I've reinstalled MTGO. Let's go for a drop and play the Gilded Goose. Also, I like that you put in the /S. I really appreciate that. Nothing from my opponent other than Duress. Very interesting. Gilded Goose, perfect here, because it means the Oko is going to be able to make the food a 3/3 straight away. I also should have got a Savannah to have a second white source for the Tundra. Oh, Wishclaw, that's fine. The Oko means that's not doing anything. Another Oko. I guess, yeah, the only thing I'm scared of is Burning Wish for something like Grape Shot and then go off later on. But I think here the play is just Oko on the Gilded Goose and keep the food around. Just in case I guess I don't need it because obviously Collect Oof turns it off, and if the Gilded Goose is a 3/3, I don't need it to sack for anything. I think the play here is just Oko, Elk the food, attack, because it puts them down to 1, which turns off the polluted delta, which is pretty relevant. Whew. That always feels pretty good to get game 1 against a combo deck. But this is going to be pretty interesting. So, Swords to Plowshares out. Probably a Skyclave, Ramanap, Row. Deafening Silence in. Meddling Mage in. I'm not sure on Surgical or Torments. Surgical obviously a little bit worse without something like Thoughtseize in the deck. Prelate obviously pretty good. I'm just going to bring in the 1 Surgical. At worst, I might be able to find out some information from my opponent if we are in a losing position. Which isn't a great thing to say, but... There's also the thought of Force of Vigor, only because our opponent probably thinks we're on a Thalia deck, so they're most likely going to play out Lotus Petals and some other artifacts before they actually want to go off with him the turn after, so there is a chance we get a Force, but I think this is hopefully okay, and we'll see how this goes. Gonna mulligan this. It has some great cards, but there's only 1 hate piece and there's also no mana, so I'm gonna mulligan. This is a fine hand in the blind, but I think because we know we're against a test-like deck, I am pretty happy to mulligan. The nice thing about mulligans is as well that our curve for this game is pretty low. So if I can find a 5 with like Deafening Silence and maybe one more Hate Bear, I'd be very happy. So I'm gonna mulligan this. And this is pretty close to what I'm after. So it's a keep. I'm bottoming the Dryad Arbor and the Gilded Goose, I believe. Because at least these just generate mana no matter what. Just an island, okay. Let's see what the Scry does. One card top, one card bottom. Meddling Mage, okay. Let's fetch for a Savannah. And play Noble. Maybe the play was going for Trop to make sure that Massacre couldn't be cast. That's probably just correct because these Mana Dorks are probably just going to be casting all my spells anyway. So that's a bit of a misplay, unfortunately. I'm going to stop 6ing to maybe act like I have something. Adnors. Okay. Ritual. They're playing Days? That's really interesting. They're hitting their pedals, which is nice. Five. 4. 3. 2. Cabal. Ponder first. Ponder again. Shuffle, shuffle, interesting. There's an LED, which is pretty huge. Tudor. See how they win. Most likely just Tendrils at this point. Yeah. I don't think anything changes. Maybe Surgical and Torments because we know this is Tess. Maybe those are better than like third Oko and Knight. Sylvan Library is also interesting. Yeah, I think it's something around here. It's a mix of these that I take out. I think one library is fine. I'm not too sure what the uptick in Ant is because I've seen a lot of really good results from Tess, which is interesting. Yeah, it could just be an uptick in people who actually have the deck on the MTGO accounts, which is interesting. I'm going to take out Library. I don't think I have the time to really set up Library, and if I do, I'm probably winning that match anyway. And I'm just going to drop an Oko. I think 2 Okos is fine. Scrib Ranger has some small benefits in this deck. Alright. Come on, Deafening Silence. Okay, this is a one-lander with Deafening Silence and Tormod's Crypt. Huh. Interesting. I think this is a trap hand. I think I lose this game because I just don't draw into lands and I don't actually get pressure on the field. Yeah, I think this is nice that it has these two straight up, but I think there's a better 6. And this is probably it. Because it has Crypt, Thalia, and also Green Suns, so keep and bottom the Questing Beast. And then just probably get Trop off this to play around Massacre and play Noble Hierarch. Okay, not the worst. Ha! Okay. Well, maybe the play is Deafening Silence and Green Suns for Hex Drinker to get a creature going and get some pressure, and then rely on the Tormod's Crypt and the Deafening Silence and the Wasteland, I guess, to do its job. I don't mind that. Hex Drinker, Silence, Pass. Ponder's okay. I think a land is probably the best draw, aside from something like Thalia, because then we get to level up the Hex Drinker and also Wasteland our opponent. So we have some really nice draws here. Green Suns. Green Suns for Oof is also pretty good. Yeah, I think it's Cracked Torments just to make Threshold a little bit harder, and then Green Suns for Collector Oof. I'll attack first. Oh, they had the days? Wow, that's really good. No way to play around it, I guess. And it does kind of put them back a bit. Hey, excellent. Thank you very much. A huge thank you for the sub as well. That means a hell of a lot. Enjoy work, enjoy your week ahead, and I'll hopefully catch you in chat soon again. I think we Wasteland. It definitely depends on the draw as well. If we draw a land, then we get really... Yeah, like that's pretty perfect. I'm just gonna go for a basic. I just want to turn off Massacre as much as possible, just in case that's like an out to a future hate bear. They could have Fatal Push. They don't. Truth is pretty good. Yikes. Brainstorm always feels like they're one piece away. I don't want to look. I'm not going to look. I think maybe the play was in draw step. After we drew the land, we should have... Yeah, I think draw step was it. So if we draw step the Wasteland, we can then in our main phase know if they've bounced the Deafening Silence or not. So that was a mistake. In hindsight, knowing that. Which is tough. And maybe that's something that I should have thought about and actually like talked about, because I think that the best thing I could have done is just keep going through my lines and understand what keeps me in the game. Yeah, Waste and Upkeep is so much better because then you have just information for your whole turn. You know if you need to, you know, recast Deafening Silence. You know if you can actually tick up Hex Drinker or not. Yeah, draw step. So after I drew the land. Chromebox this turn makes me feel like we don't have it this turn. This time. They have 3 cards, but so that's interesting. Cradle. Ooh. Guess that doesn't really change anything, to be fair. I'll keep this up because of days. Yeah. Nice. Alright. Play this. I mean, they have 3 cards. If they have removal for this, they're down to 2 cards. It's pretty tight for them. They are going to fetch. Double black is interesting. Double black? Another truth, okay. I probably should have just used this mana anyway into the Hex. There's no reason not to. Haha! Yes! Oh, that feels good. That feel... Ah, that feels good. That feels nice. I don't get many trophies, so that feels really good. Definitely a few things I can definitely work on with my gameplay, but yeah, that's really nice to get. That's awesome. I'm sweating. The test deck's obviously pretty That was cool. That was awesome. Obviously the deck was pretty sweet. The blue definitely helped. I kind of like that it's only a little splash. I'm not going to run it back, unfortunately. I do have a pretty early start in the morning, but yeah, this went really well. I was really impressed with the deck. Oko was fantastic. It really allowed us to attack on a different angle. So where things like Terminus were great, Oko was still just churning out food and 3/3s. Uro was nice to have as just an extra play. There wasn't any time that I really wanted to green suns for it, but it was, yeah, just good to have in the deck. And obviously just a really nice value card. It's also great in the late game, which is nice. To the sideboard, I think it was pretty good. I think we could probably do with another Planeswalker, and I think that there's potential that maybe something like Gideon, Ally of Zendikar is just better in this deck than Felidar Retreat, just because you really need the card to make value straight away, and Felidar Retreat does rely on other cards being lands. But overall, it seemed like a pretty sweet deck. I think I might change up the sideboard a little bit, but the main deck seemed great. I liked having the 6 mana dorks. That was pretty good. Court of Grace next time. Okay, we'll see. We'll see how Court of Grace goes, because it would be interesting to try out some Monarch card, especially now that we have Skyclave Apparition to have a little bit more removal in the main deck. That's pretty cool. So that is it. A huge thank you to everyone who came in and watched. A huge thank you to the new subs, the new followers. If you want to catch any of my content, you can find me on YouTube. Here, you can find me on Twitter. Here. And you can also, of course, find me at thegreensunzenith.com, which is a website dedicated to Legacy Maverick. I'm going to quickly see who else is playing. Auntie's setting up. Nice. We did just finish. Thank you very much. I'm going to raid Anu. Nice. Yeah, if you missed me, you can catch me on YouTube. This will be up tomorrow night. We can catch it. A huge thank you. I'll be back Sunday night, not Sunday morning. Probably for BANT Maverick again, which will be pretty cool. So we'll see you then. See you guys.